All right, everybody, welcome back to the best damn training channel on YouTube. Today is day one of week 3 on Strictly Strength. So the track day is going to be that acceleration complex. Really, it's just heavy jumping focus with a little bit of sprints for the day. Before we get started, we have hit our 7,500 subscriber goal. As of this morning when I checked, it was like 7,503 or 7,502, something like that. So that means I owe you guys a chance to win a pair of Strike Movement trainers. I'm going to be giving away 4 pairs of these. I'll do it later on this week. We're going to figure out a way that we can compile everyone's emails into one form and then have like a random selector just choose 4 different emails. And then what I'm going to do is email you guys out a form that you guys can fill out with your size, the color you want, your address, all that kind of stuff. And then Strike Movement will send those shoes to you directly. So be on the lookout for a video later this week on how you can enter and win a pair of the Hayes trainers. But today, we're going to start off with the standing triple jump. I've done a few warm-up sets already. I feel like I'm warm enough where I can start setting it and try to get to that 9 meter mark, because 9 meters is essentially where I'm going to be counting my reps from. So the pink cone here is at 9 meters. Red cone is at 10. We're going to do 3 to 4 attempts on a standing triple jump today, as long as they're all around that 9 meter mark. So I like 890 plus. Like if we're close to 9 meters, I'm going to count it, but anything below 890, I feel like we're not going to count that as a solid attempt. So 890 or bust for these reps on the standing triple. And there we have it. Rep number 1, 9 meters exactly. All right, rep number 2. Rep number 2 is 9 meters exactly again. Tell you what, legs are feeling a little bit heavy today. Probably because of that deadlift we did on Saturday or Friday or whatever. It was Friday, but we'll get after it. All right, I didn't stick the landing on that last one, but I'm still going to count it because I felt like I was pretty close to the pink cone. So we're right at that 9 meter mark. I got one more attempt in me, and then we're going to move on to our heavy bounds and bounds into an Excel today. I'm switching it up a bit, so I'll show you guys as we get there. But I think today's format is going to be a format that I'm going to stick with for the next few weeks when it comes to this Excel bound complex that I've been doing for the last 2 weeks. Oh yeah, we're flat. That's like 880. We're done. So the first part of the complex, as usual, is we're going to be doing the Excel bounds with the sled. We're going to do 2 reps. So we'll do 20 meters down, rest about a minute or 2, 20 meters back. So this is essentially the 3rd week of me doing this acceleration bound complex. And I haven't been changing the weight on the sled. I've kept it at 50% body weight, so 50 kilos for me, even though I'm slightly under 100 kilos. And the reason for that is I'm not looking at progressing this from week to week. I'm looking at progressing this from like training block to training block. So the first 3 to 4 weeks of this has been just focusing on increasing the amount of volume that we're accumulating. So I think week 1 on this, we did 2 sets. Last week we did 3. This week we're going to do 3 to 4 sets again on this and try to increase that volume. We'll drop it back down probably to 2 sets next week. And then the progression for the next block, I think what I'm going to end up doing is taking a slight amount of weight off of the sled. So let's say we go to 40 kilos and then extending this bound zone into 25 meters versus 20. So we'll go a little bit lighter. We'll go a little bit further, or we might just go a little bit further and not go any lighter. It just depends on how I'm going to progress things and based on how I feel is going to be the best progression. So we'll probably play around with both of those variations and figure out which one's going to be the one that we go with. But we're definitely going to extend this resisted bound zone to be a little bit longer. And then we're going to extend the second part where we're doing an unresisted acceleration bound into a sprint. And I'll show you guys once we get there how I'm setting this up for the next few weeks as well. So first rep on the Excel bounds. We're gonna go rep number 2 on the resisted acceleration bound. All right, so the difference that I'm doing today versus what I've done for the past couple weeks is I've normally done 2 heavy excel bounds, 2 acceleration bounds with no sled, and then done a 20-meter acceleration after that. What I'm doing now is I'm going to be doing 2 heavy acceleration bounds and then 2 acceleration bounds into a sprint. So almost kind of like a flying 10, but the first 30 meters of that is going to be acceleration bounds versus kind of a buildup going into a max velocity sprint. So I'm going to be going from this end of the track today because we've got this giant blue machinery in the lane that I normally sprint in that's taking up space. So we'll go 0 to 30 acceleration bound. And then essentially what we're trying to do is keep that momentum and just bring it into like a sprint. So a late acceleration kind of phase development. I shouldn't be fully upright doing max velocity sprints here. Because of that acceleration bound, I'm going to be maintaining that forward lean. So it's going to be kind of like a late acceleration. So like if you're looking at comparing this to like a 40-yard dash, this would be like after your 10 to 15 yard mark before you get to like that 30 where you're standing up and fully sprinting. So like kind of that middle acceleration zone. We'll do 2 sets of this and we'll have a 10-meter zone here that we're going to do that sprint. So essentially taking that 20-meter sprint and breaking it up into 2 10-meter sections. So I'm still accumulating the same amount of volume of sprinting, but this 10 meters probably is going to be a lot higher on the velocity end of things than if I'm just doing a standard 20-meter acceleration. All right, rep number 1 felt like shit on that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna shorten up the acceleration bound zone. Rather than doing 30 into 10, I'm gonna go 20 into 10 and see if I can't make that feel a little bit better. Because I felt like I got towards like the last 5 meters of this and my legs just didn't have it in it to try to keep that acceleration bound going, let alone transition into a sprint. So we'll take 10 meters off of the bound zone and we'll try to make that feel a little bit better. So that's 1 round, and we're gonna end up doing a minimum of 3, maximum of 4 of those today. Try to get as much volume on this as long as they're feeling really good. And then we're gonna move on to the rest of the plows for today. So I'll show you guys 1 more round of that and probably spare you guys from seeing all 4 rounds of it, but we'll make that adjustment. That 20-meter acceleration bound into the 10-meter sprint felt much better. Felt like I was able to maintain position better and transition into that sprint at a much smoother pace. So I'm gonna keep the 20 plus 10 for the next few rounds, and maybe in the next cycle, we'll try to extend that out and go 25 into 10 or maybe even 30 into 10 as we progress this throughout the weeks. But I think that 30 right now is just a little bit too far. A 30-meter acceleration bound by itself is fine because the last few meters I'm kind of pushing myself to be disciplined enough to maintain that acceleration angle where I have that forward lean. But then transitioning into a sprint I think is just, it's too much because I'm already fighting to maintain position for that acceleration bound and then trying to add that velocity into it. What happened on that first rep is I felt like I almost slowed down into the sprint because I was already fighting so hard to maintain that position and using a lot of energy to maintain that acceleration bound. So by shortening up that bound zone, I think it's going to allow me to maintain a much higher velocity into the sprint, which is what I'm looking for. So 1 more round of that is what you guys will see. And then we're going to move on to the plyos for today. All right, so the Excel bound complex, I ended up doing 3 rounds of that. Just my legs started feeling heavy on the last couple reps of those acceleration bounds into a sprint. So I didn't think there was gonna be much quality in doing another round of that and doing an additional 4 repetitions. So I'm moving on to the plyos for the day. First one we're doing is a depth jump. Now, I've been doing depth jumps for the last few weeks, and what I've been doing is like low amount of volume, so like sets of 3 on this, just to kind of prepare the legs to get a little bit more volume, and then we're gonna increase the intensity on these as we progress through this program. But what I'm gonna be doing is sets of 5, and I'm gonna be doing them onto a box today, whereas the previous weeks I've been doing it onto the ground and then back onto the ground. Sets of 3 on that are okay. The main difference between doing it on the ground and doing it to a box is you're just trying to minimize the amount of ground contacts that you have per set. So if I'm doing sets of 5 onto the ground. What I'm doing is I'm dropping off the ground. I've got an impact when I land on the ground and I'm jumping in the air, and then I have another impact when I land on the ground to end that jump. So when doing higher amounts of volume, what I'm looking to do is try to minimize those ground impacts so I can maintain quality over the course of increasing that volume. So going off of a box, hitting the ground, and then jumping onto a taller box is going to lessen the impact upon landing versus onto the ground. So if I jump off of a 30-inch box, and let's say I jump 30 inches in the air and then I hit the ground, that's a 30-inch space in which I'm going to be accelerating towards the ground and then impacting the ground from 30 inches. Versus if I'm jumping up to a box, let's say I drop off the box, I get 30 inches in the air, more than likely I'm going to need to pull my knees up a little bit or just be slightly above this box, let's say 5 inches or 10 inches, and that's going to be a much softer landing and allow to save the legs a little bit so you can get more volume where it counts, which is that depth jump reaction. So we're looking at the drop and the jump off the ground being the quality, and then we're minimizing the impact after that jump by jumping onto a box versus jumping in the air and landing back onto the ground. And then I go ahead and drop off the box like that. Ideally, you want to walk yourself back down, but I didn't get far enough onto the box. That's what you ideally want to do. Don't jump up to the box and then drop back down. The legs just feel like they don't got a spring in them today. Those deadlifts that I did on Friday, that 230 for 5 with that pause, definitely feeling a little bit of that today. So good thing I had that extra day off yesterday, because who knows how my legs would have felt yesterday. But I'm gonna do probably 3 to 4 sets of this with the depth jumps, and then we'll move on to a seated jump variation, which I'm changing up again, and I'll show you guys that next. All right, so what I've been doing previously is a seated box jump, so seated vertical takeoff. I'm going to be doing a seated broad jump now, and the reason I chose to do a seated broad jump is because I'm going out to Texas here at the end of May, so in just about a month or so. And when I'm out there, I'm going to be training with Tim. I'm going to be doing the podcast on Coach 'em Up, and I'm going to be hanging out and doing things. And everyone that's been going out and training with Tim's been having them do this seated broad jump variation. You guys have probably seen me do this before. I had a video that I posted on Instagram of me doing a seated broad jump, and I think it was somewhere around 3 meters from the takeoff point on top of the box. So I'm going to be doing that again because I'm going to try to get the record. Whatever the record is, I don't know what it is exactly, but whatever the record is, I'm going to try to get it. So we're going to work on that for the next month before we get out to Texas, so we can try to put down the record for the gym on whatever their seated box jump is. So what I have here is a tape measure that is measuring the front of this box here to where my feet are going to be kind of taking off, and then the height of these mats, I just measured it out, is 57 centimeters. So no specific reason on the height, it's just the mats were here, so that's what I'm going to jump to. What I'm going to try to do is bring myself to a takeoff point of, let's scoot this up a little bit. We'll go, so this point right here is 1.70 meters. So I'll do my first set here as kind of like a warm-up set, because I'm probably going to do 4 sets on this total, and we'll try to extend this out and see what we can do for a set of 5 today. This mic keeps flying up and hitting me in the face. There we go. So we're gonna do some sets on this. We're gonna scoot that box back a little bit, try to push that distance and see what distance we can get from takeoff point where my feet are. So not from where the box is, but from where my feet are gonna be. So my feet are about 1.70 meters right here until we get to that box. So the next one, I'll probably scoot it back to about 2 meters, and then we'll just keep pushing that back and see what kind of a distance we can get on a seated broad jump today. All right, so we're gonna be right here. Takeoff point is going to be about 2 meters, so we'll be around that 2 meter takeoff point on these next 5 jumps. All right, we'll scoot back another 10 centimeters. We got the third set on these. Takeoff point now is about 215, 220-ish when we're looking at where we're going off from. We scooted the box back probably another 10, which is going to put us around 230, 240 on a takeoff point. I think I got 2 sets left, so I'll do this set of 5, and I'll do one more set of 5, and I'll try to get to like 250, or maybe try to get 2 full lanes, which is going to be about 260. This is a variation of broad jumps that I've done a lot of, especially when I was doing bobsled, because what it does is it teaches you to get your feet on the ground and then roll your weight forward and kind of see that shin angle drop, and then you need to project yourself out. But because you're jumping onto a box, you need to project yourself at a proper angle to clear enough height to get onto the box. You're not just pushing out and trying to jump as far as you can by projecting too far forward. The box there really is kind of a cue that you need to get up and out when you go. So it teaches you sort of proper projection angles when you're looking at doing either a broad jump or even an acceleration, kind of that push off where you should see kind of the shin angle drop and then you project yourself out. So doing a seated box jump variation is something I used a ton when I was doing bobsled, working on acceleration. One more. All right, we got one more set of those. All right, so now we got about a 250 takeoff. Maybe toes on the line. This is starting to look far. I don't know. Let's see if we can get it. Oh, I got that like jittery feeling. Okay, I think my feet were across the line, but I feel comfortable. Bam, there you have it. We'll call that 250, because I think I was taking off about here. I don't know. So this is a 250 mark right here. We'll call that 250 across. So not too shabby. 260 would have been like toes on the line, but I definitely had like the balls of my feet on the line. All right, I'm gonna be doing single leg depth drops to finish off today's session. And I'm doing a different variation where I'm gonna go from a higher box, which is now going to make me land single leg, like a true single leg depth drop. So what I've been doing previously is I would stand up on the box, keep that back leg on the box, and I would land in that single leg position, but have a lot more stability by keeping that leg on top of the box as you fall down. As you increase the height of the box, being able to keep that leg on top of the box and be able to maintain sort of a little bit more depth with the landing leg is going to be a lot more difficult. So you start off with a low box, you can keep that back leg on, drop into your lunge position so you can get used to that feeling. And then as you increase the height of the box, you need to start taking away that leg off the top of the box and turn it into a true single leg depth drop. So we'll do a few sets on this, and then that's going to be it for the rest of the session for today. So I'll show you guys the focus here. And when I land on this, again, I'm gonna try to land as stiff as I can and try to maintain a little bit more of a knee flexion position as I get into my landing spot. So I'll step off of the box and not fall over. I'll step off of the box and try to get into this position here as I'm in that landing position. And as you can see, I'm trying to hold that landing position here. That way I can feel that I'm actually stable in that landing position and not kind of just collapsing into that. If you find yourself collapsing, so if you find yourself getting down here and you're kind of like doing something like that, it's too tall of a box. You're not able to produce enough eccentric force to kind of stop yourself. So lower the box down a little bit and build yourself up slowly. You shouldn't feel that collapse as you get into that drop. you have it. So I'm gonna do a few more sets of that, but that's gonna be it for today's video. I appreciate you guys for watching. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one.